People called him Old Man Robert. They said he was once a businessman, now a beggar. Every morning, he sat quietly in his wheelchair, just outside the entrance of Bonny Plaza in the heart of Surulere, Lagos. He didn't say much, just sat there, wrapped in a faded sweater, his right hand permanently folded, his legs unmoving, and his tired face watching the busy world go by. Traders passed him every day. Some dropped a few naira notes out of pity. Some ignored him entirely. A few mocked him behind his back, saying, "That old man is tired of spending his money. Now he fantasizes being on a wheelchair. That is life for you." Nobody really cared to know who he was. But if they had asked, if anyone had dared to look closer, they might have discovered the truth. Old Man Robert was not a beggar. He was Robert Winston Attaboy, founder and owner of Winston Holdings, a company with real estate properties across Lagos Island, a controlling interest in a logistics empire, and ties to oil and export businesses across Africa. But now, in the public eye, he was nothing more than a cripple on a sidewalk. And it was all part of his plan. Robert had a son, Nathan, tall, well-educated, good-looking, and the only child of his late wife. Nathan had returned from London 2 years ago after finishing his master's in engineering and had since taken over parts of the family company. He had money, looks, and charm. What he didn't have, though, was a wife who genuinely loved him. Every woman Nathan brought home had the same polished smile, the same forced laugh, the same fake kindness. They dressed for attention. Their nails were sharp, their perfume loud, and their conversations always circled around cars, houses, travel, and lifestyle. Robert watched them closely and said little, but deep down, he knew none of them were truly there for his son. One evening after another empty family dinner, he called Nathan into his study. "These girls you bring here, do they know you?" Robert asked, looking at his son through the rim of his glasses. Nathan laughed. "Of course, Dad. They know I'm allergic to shrimp and hate loud places." Robert shook his head. "That's not what I mean. Do they know you, who you are without all this wealth?" Nathan sighed. "Dad, this is Lagos. If you're not rich, nobody sees you." "Exactly," Robert said quietly. He leaned back and made a decision that had been growing in his mind for months. "I'm going to leave this house for a while. When you see me again, I'll be someone else. You'll understand later." And just like that, Robert Winston Attaboy disappeared. He rented a small single-room apartment in the low-end part of Surulere under a fake name. He paid a carpenter to modify an old wheelchair and used makeup and bandages to look like he had suffered a stroke. He even hired a nurse to coach him on how to move like a stroke patient. And then he began his new life as Robert, the helpless old man. Every day, he wheeled himself out to Bonny Plaza. And every day, the city passed him by like a shadow. Until one Thursday morning, everything changed. She arrived like a breath of fresh wind on a hot Lagos afternoon. Her name was Stacy Adams. Petite, caramel-skinned, dressed in a plain blue t-shirt and faded jeans. She looked like any ordinary young woman trying to get by in Lagos. Her hair was tied in a scarf, and her fingers were stained red from handling pepper. She had just opened a small food stall 2 streets away, selling rice, beans, yam porridge, and soft drinks. That morning, as she carried her food cooler past Bonny Plaza, she noticed him. The old man looked cold and fragile. His blanket had slipped to the floor, and his fingers trembled as he tried to pick it up. She paused, then walked up and picked up the blanket without a word. She gently covered his legs and looked at him. "Sir, have you eaten this morning?" He didn't reply. He just blinked and nodded slowly. She frowned. "I'll bring food later. Just sit still, okay?" True to her word, Stacy returned hours later with a plate of warm beans and plantain and a sachet of water. She didn't just hand it to him. She knelt down, broke the plantain, and fed him. "Open your mouth," she said. "Don't let pride kill you. Grandpa." Robert's heart stirred. She had no idea who he was. No camera, no audience. She wasn't seeking anything. She simply cared. Day after day, she returned. Sometimes with food, sometimes with a story. She'd talk about how the gas price had gone up, or how a drunk man tried to steal meat from her cooler. She'd laugh at her own jokes and gently clean the corner of his mouth with tissue. One day, when the skies were moody and gray, she said quietly, "You remind me of my father. He died when I was 10. If he were alive, I think he'd look like you." Robert studied her face. Her kindness wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't calculated. It was genuine. He began asking questions with short whispers. Where was she from? Why was she here? Where were her people? Stacy told him her story. She had grown up in Port Harcourt. Her father had died early. Her mother sold roasted corn to send her to secondary school. She came to Lagos with dreams of becoming a caterer, but life hadn't been kind. She had no rich uncles, no connections, no backdoor sponsors, just grit and prayer. "I don't want to marry a rich man," she once told Robert. "I just want to marry a kind man who works hard and respects people. I don't mind if he's struggling, as long as he has a good heart." Robert's eyes misted. He had finally found her, but the test wasn't over. It had just begun. The weather was dry, hot, and sticky, the kind of day Lagosians called fire on the skin. Down at the corner of Bonny Plaza, Robert sat in his usual spot, sunglasses hiding his watchful eyes as he waited. It had been 2 weeks since he sent word to his son, Nathan, instructing him to meet a young woman called Stacy. No surnames, no background checks, just an address and a warning: do not go as yourself. Let her meet your heart before your bank account. Nathan had rolled his eyes when he read the letter. His father's experiment had stretched too far already. For weeks, he'd watched the media speculate on where Robert Winston had disappeared to. Some said he was dead. Others whispered of foreign hospitals. Nathan knew the truth. His father was in Suralire pretending to be crippled, all to find a wife for him. It was madness. But out of respect and curiosity, Nathan obeyed. That Friday, he swapped his custom-made suits for a pair of cheap black chinos and a checkered shirt from Yaba Market. He wore rubber slippers, left the Benz at home. He boarded a tricycle and headed towards Suralire like a regular man trying to survive the heat. He found her at the food stall just where his father had described, under the faded yellow umbrella, scooping jollof rice with the speed and precision of someone who'd done it for years. She didn't notice him at first. Her hands moved fast, calling out prices and giving change. Her apron was stained, her brows damp with sweat. She was arguing with a meat supplier when Nathan approached. "Excuse me," he said. She turned, sizing him up quickly. He looked ordinary, unimpressive, the kind of man Lagos girls didn't give time to. "Yes," she asked, curt but not rude. "I was told to look for Stacy," he said. "The old man in the wheelchair. He said I should greet you." Her face softened instantly. "Oh, Grandpa Robert. You know him?" Nathan nodded, unsure of how to answer. "He speaks highly of you." That was how it began. He returned the next day, then the day after. Sometimes he helped carry her coolers. Other times he just stood there, acting like a jobless young man with nowhere to be. He said his name was David, a name he hadn't used since secondary school. Stacy was polite, but guarded. She didn't flirt. She didn't bat her lashes or twirl her braids. She asked him hard questions instead, about his work, his dreams, his beliefs. She wasn't the type to fall for smiles and stories. Nathan told her he fixed electronics part-time. A lie, but not entirely. He had rewired smart homes and led engineering teams across continents. At least this time, he was doing the wiring with his hands. Over time, he began to see her through his father's eyes. Stacy was not just kind. She was honest to a fault. If a customer overpaid, she returned the change. If she ran out of meat, she told the truth. No lies, no drama. And when she laughed, it wasn't forced or polished. It was real. She spoke of her past without shame. How do you keep going? Nathan asked one day as they sat under the umbrella sharing a bottle of Coke. She looked out at the street, quiet for a moment. My mother used to say, "Your life won't always be like this, but your attitude will shape your journey." So I show up every day, even when I'm tired, even when I feel invisible. Nathan said nothing. He had never met anyone like her, not in all his years of travel, not in the boardrooms or parties or brunches he'd attended. He was falling for her, but he didn't know how to tell her the truth. One evening, after closing her stall, Stacy found Robert waiting. This time, he wasn't alone. Nathan, still dressed in his humble disguise, stood beside him, a nervous expression on his face. "Grandpa," she said, alarmed. "What's wrong?" Robert smiled faintly. "Nothing's wrong, my dear. I just thought it's time I told you something important." He motioned for Nathan to step aside. Then he did something she hadn't seen in all the weeks they'd known each other. He stood up. No cane, no support, no wheelchair. He rose steadily, like a man fully capable of walking the entire stretch of Lagos. Stacy froze. Her eyes darted from the wheelchair to his face. You can walk." "Yes, but you were—" "I was never crippled. I only pretended to be. I needed to find someone real, someone who would see me as a human being, not a billionaire, someone who would treat my son with love, not ambition." She turned to Nathan. "Son." Nathan took off his cap. "I'm not David. My name is Nathan Robert Attaboy. The man you fed and cared for is my father. And I've been lying to you." She staggered back. The street lights flickered above them. A few traders turned their heads, watching the drama unfold like a movie scene. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Because I wanted to be sure," Nathan said, stepping forward. "I've been with women who only saw money, who smiled for the press and laughed for the camera. But you treated me like a person." Tears welled in her eyes. "So you made a fool of me? Both of you?" "No," Robert said gently. "We saw your worth. We just didn't want to taint it with titles and wealth. You have something this city doesn't teach anymore: humility." Stacy wiped her eyes and laughed bitterly. "Must be easy for you too, playing poor while the rest of us starve." Then she turned and walked away. The days that followed were dry and heavy. Stacy didn't come to her stall. The umbrella remained folded, the food pots empty. Nathan sent messages, no reply. He tried visiting, she wasn't home. Robert watched his son suffer, and though he felt guilt, he also felt pride. His son had finally learned what he himself learned too late, that a woman's love can't be bought. It must be earned. But time was running out. 3 weeks passed. The food stall was gone. The yellow umbrella had been taken down. No trace of Stacy remained on the corner of Ana Street in Suralere. Her name stopped coming up in market chatter. Her customers had moved on. Life in Lagos didn't pause for heartbreak. It never had. Nathan had searched everywhere. Her old neighborhood, her small apartment, even her former pepper supplier hadn't seen her. It was like she had vanished into thin air, carrying all her pain and anger with her. Robert didn't say much. He simply watched his son fall deeper into silence each passing day. One afternoon, as they sat in the Winston Holdings boardroom reviewing a new proposal for an office complex in Ikoyi, Nathan suddenly closed his laptop. "I can't pretend anymore," he said. Robert looked at him. Then don't. I want her, Dad. Not because she's kind, not because she passed your test. I want her because she's mine. She saw me when I had nothing, even though I had everything. Robert leaned back. Then go find her. And this time, don't go as David. Go as yourself. No secrets, no disguises, just your heart. It took another week of asking, begging, and searching. Finally, a woman at a community kitchen in Ajij recognized her picture. That's the girl we call Madam Rice now, she said. She runs that small joint beside the canal. Doesn't say much, but her food finishes quick. Nathan went immediately. The area was tight and overcrowded just off the railway line. The street was narrow, lined with iron kiosks and children running barefoot. The ground was wet, filled with gutter water and bits of soaked nylon. The kind of place that smelled of hardship and fried onions. And there she was, under a new blue tarpaulin, ladling white rice into plastic bowls with the same grace she had at Bonny Plaza. Her hands moved like music. Her face was still unreadable. Nathan didn't approach. He waited in the queue like every other customer. When it got to his turn, she looked up. Their eyes locked. For a moment, the entire street fell silent. She froze. He said nothing. Then slowly he stepped forward. "Hi," he said quietly. She scooped rice into the bowl. "You found me. I never stopped looking." She handed him the plate. 200 naira. He smiled faintly and reached into his pocket. But instead of a note, he brought out a small black velvet box. "I came with more than 200, he said. Her hand stopped midair. "I'm not here as David," he continued. "I'm not here as the billionaire's son, either. I'm here as the man you made better. The man who wants to wake up every morning beside you, whether it's in a mansion or in a place like this." Customers were now staring. Traders peeped from behind umbrellas. Stacy slowly set down her spoon. She looked at him. No tears, no expression. Just a deep, soul-cutting stare. "You humiliated me," she said quietly. "You made me believe in a lie." "I did, and I'm sorry, but I fell for you as David. Not because you fed my father, not because you were kind. I fell because you made me feel seen, and I didn't know how to give you the real me without losing that." She said nothing. He knelt on the muddy ground, the velvet box still open, the ring glinting under the harsh Lagos sun. "Stacy Adams," he said, voice steady, "will you marry me? In front of these children, in this gutter, without a makeup artist or a gown, just you and me and the truth." Her lips parted slightly. A long pause. Then she reached forward, picked a spoon of rice from the hot pot, and fed it to him. "If you can eat street rice in front of this crowd," she said, "then maybe you are ready." The street erupted in cheers. Women screamed. Okada men clapped. A conductor ran up and poured pure water over Nathan's head. It was a mess, but a joyful one. Later that month, the headlines read, "Billionaire's son marries unknown food vendor in a Ajij Canal wedding." But to Stacy and Nathan, it wasn't just a wedding. It was a return to truth. They didn't get married in a cathedral. They got married in a church compound with no AC, surrounded by people who'd watched them struggle. Robert sat in the front row, no wheelchair, no disguise, just a proud father watching his son marry the woman who had taught them both what wealth truly meant. At the reception, Stacy wore a simple lace gown. Her makeup was done by her younger sister. Nathan wore a plain gray suit, no tie, no Gucci, no designer logos, just love, real, raw, rooted in truth.